years. First, we want to talk about why you're here, how the selection process is. What makes you, out of the 6,000 people that played high school football, 40 of the best players in Arkansas? Well, we talk to your coaches. We starting in January, we write a 544-page book for about 7 months, and then we start sending filmers out all over the state. We film pretty much all 3 of your years, some of you 4. We cover your career, and Bates Yoakum, Barry Grooms, and David Wallace have chronicled your career in a video on why you are some of the best in the state. We talk to your coaches, and those guys are probably your biggest advocates. Those guys, I don't know how, if they're like talking to your mothers, I don't know if they could talk better than that. The opposing coaches, though, are the ones that really talk about you, that really matter, and the way you change the game. We take that into account. We watch film. We've broken down more film than I could have ever imagined. We feel that you guys are the 40 best players and the 16 best coaches in the state of Arkansas. And tonight is not about winning and losing. It's about celebrating your season, because you don't get here by being average. You get here by being great. And this is for you guys. And so we're going to have the Farm Bureau, Mr. Mac Wallace, the man that does it all. He's going to come up here in a second. Is Mr. Mac here? He's what? He's coming, okay. We spent about a month working on these videos, writing the scripts, interviewing everybody, and pretty much we're pretty excited to tell your story. Is Mac here? Can someone get... Oh, there he is. All right. Mr. Mac Wallace.
I really hadn't planned on making a grand entrance, okay? On behalf of Farm Bureau, I'd just like to say that we're very pleased to partner with Hootens to recognize some of our outstanding performances and athletes during this football season. And I know y'all didn't come to hear me talk, so I'm going to be short. But I always think about football being a team sport, an 11-man sport. And these are individual honors on a team sport. So I would challenge you to take these recognitions home and share them with your teammates because they were certainly helpful in getting you here tonight. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it back over to Thomas. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So we're going to start with 8-man, then the coach and player of the year, and then they're going to come up here and receive their award, and we're going to give them a big round of applause. Then the next videos will show up. There'll be 2A offense, there'll be 2A defense, then 2A coaches, and moving up from there. And just make sure you give these guys the big round of applause that they deserve.
Farm Bureau presents the 8-man Player of the Year, Caden McHenry Jones Strong. In football, speed is dangerous, and few players can match strides with Strong's Caden McHenry Jones. The state's top hurdler doubles as a playmaking quarterback. He totaled more than 1,500 yards in an all-state junior season, then got faster as a senior. In the state championship game, Caden did everything. He finished as one of the Bulldogs' top tacklers. Returned this punt for an early touchdown. threw 2 touchdown passes, including this 54-yarder. And he iced the game with this 51-yard touchdown sprint to open the second half and earn state title game MVP honors. In a 3-time All-State career, Caden McHenry Jones had almost 4,800 yards and 84 touchdowns for teams that won 2 state titles. Strong's Caden McHenry Jones. Farm Bureau presents the 8-man Coach of the Year, Jason Porter, Strong. Most 8-man football champions dominate with offense. That wasn't the case with Strong and head coach Jason Porter. Oh, the Bulldogs had a dynamic offense. Senior running back Jermiron McHenry scored 3 first-half touchdowns in the state title game and was the perfect complement to his brother, quarterback Caden McHenry Jones. The twins helped Strong average 46 points per game. But defense set this team apart. Strong allowed fewer than 8 points a game. The Bulldogs were always the more physical team and overwhelmed opponents with an abundance of speed. Strong forced 6 turnovers in the state championship game, scoring 34 points off those takeaways to win its second state title in 4 years. Strong's Jason Porter.
All right. Congratulations to these guys. The 8-man is the only guys that know they are the winners beforehand, so it's a little anticlimactic. But give these guys a round of applause, and congratulations on a great year.
Farm Bureau presents the finalist for Class 2A Offensive Player of the Year, Dominique Grimes, Junction City. Junction City has won 8 state championships and produced dozens of college players over the past 20 years. But statistically speaking, no former Dragon can equal Dominique Grimes. He ran for more than 600 yards as a junior. This fall, Grimes meshed 4.4 speed with lower body strength. He ground out 287 yards and 3 touchdowns at Carlisle in the second game of the season. 11 weeks later, Grimes and the Dragons returned to Carlisle, and Dominique Grimes dominated again with one of the best playoff games in state history, going off for 340 yards and 4 touchdowns, and helping the Dragons avenge that early season loss. A week later, Grimes had 154 yards and 3 first-half touchdowns at Conway Christian. All-state running back Dominique Grimes put up nearly 2,100 yards and 30 touchdowns this season and became the first player in Junction City's storied history with more than 1,000 yards in both rushing and receiving in his career. Junction City's Dominique Grimes. Jaron Thomas, Conway Christian. Over the last year and a half, Conway Christian rode its rodeo roping quarterback. Jaron Thomas missed half of last season with a back injury, but returned and had 700 yards as the Eagles won 9 games and advanced to the quarterfinals. That set the stage for a memorable 2024. Conway Christian's dual threat ran for 152 yards and accounted for 5 touchdowns in a midseason 1-point win over Mount Ida. 5 weeks later, Jaron Thomas ran for 115 yards in the conference title showdown against Bigelow. Conway Christian's team leader turned it on in the playoffs. Number 3 rallied the Eagles from a 3-touchdown deficit in the semifinals against Junction City. A week later, Thomas took off on a 20-yard run in the fourth quarter. 3 plays later, this touchdown run put the Eagles up by 2 scores against East Poinsett County. In an all-state senior season, Jaron Thomas accounted for almost 2,800 yards and 33 touchdowns as the Eagles won 14 games, their 4th conference title in school history, and a state championship. Conway Christian's Jaron Thomas. Ben Woodfield, Mount Ida. His big brother Jacob was a Farm Bureau Insurance Awards finalist in 2022, but little bro didn't do too bad. Mount Ida's 5'9", 165-pound running back Ben Woodfield did everything for Mount Ida this fall. This sure tackler led the defense with 98 stops. He kicked extra points and field goals. But a running back's main job is running the ball, and few have ever done it as well as Ben Woodfield. Number 25 put up staggering numbers. He went off for 289 yards and 5 touchdowns in a midseason showdown at Conway Christian. 2 weeks later, he had a performance for the ages with 418 yards and 4 touchdowns in a 62-point outburst at Hector. In 3 playoff games, Woodfield hit another gear, running for almost 600 yards and 12 touchdowns. Mount Ida's Ben Woodfield finished his All-State senior season by rushing for almost 2,500 yards and 36 touchdowns and scoring an astonishing 284 points. That's the second most in state history. Mount Ida's Ben Woodfield.
All right, let's give these guys another round of applause. The Farm Bureau 2A Offensive Player of the Year goes to Mr. Ben Woodfield, Mount Ida. That's it.
Farm Bureau presents the finalist for Class 2A Defensive Player of the Year, Gabe Boyle, Carlisle. No need to provoke this bison. On his own, he willingly charged opponents for 4 years, while never missing a game. Blocking specialist Gabe Boyle bulldozed running lanes by locking up defenders. Touchdown, Bison! And on defense, Gabe made tackles. Lots of them. As a sophomore, Boyle was instrumental in Carlisle's run to its first state title game in 11 seasons. Boyle was Carlisle's team leader in an all-state junior season when he made 121 tackles, helping the Bison to the semifinals. In an all-state senior season, Boyle balled out. He was the top tackler when Carlisle took down Junction City in Week 1. 2 months later, he was all over the field against Hazen, helping the Bison secure another league title. In his final 3 seasons as a starter, Boyle helped Carlisle win 34 games, 2 conference titles, and the state runner-up finish. Carlisle's Gabe Boyle. Brody Maroon, Murfreesboro. Brody Maroon isn't a transformer, but Murfreesboro athletic lineman remade himself from an offensive tackle and nose guard as a sophomore into an all-conference tight end at defensive tackle as a junior. His 79 tackles helped Murfreesboro rattle off 11 wins and capture its first conference title in a dozen years. This fall, Maroon was on the move again, running for almost 900 yards and 16 touchdowns at fullback. He terrorized opponents as a defensive end. His fumble recovery for a touchdown sparked a Week 7 Mercy Rule win over Lafayette County. In the first round of the playoffs, Maroon had 7 tackles, and he ran for 99 yards and 2 touchdowns in the win over Mark Tree. Maroon made 111 tackles as a senior, and Murfreesboro won another conference title. Brody Maroon finishes his transformation process with more than 200 career tackles, helping Murfreesboro win back-to-back conference titles for the first time in almost 30 years. Murfreesboro's Brody Maroon. Brady DeMacus, Conway Christian. He wasn't the flashiest on the field, just the best playmaker. Conway Christian's Brady DeMarcus made plenty of them. Plays, that is. DeMarcus had more than 50 tackles and ran for more than 1,000 yards during an all-state junior season, helping Conway Christian to its best record in 6 years. This fall, Brady showed off on offense with 110 yards and 2 touchdowns in the conference title game against Bigelow. In the state championship, DeMarcus dominated the game. This short touchdown run late in the first quarter put Conway Christian up. When the Eagles trailed by 2 points in the fourth quarter, they gave the ball to their best player, and Brady took off 42 yards for the go-ahead touchdown. DeMarcus was just as impressive this year on defense, finishing with 66 tackles. His 2 blocked punts against Bigelow helped the Eagles claim the conference championship. His 4 tackles against East Poinsett County helped him earn state title game MVP honors. In a 2-time All-State career, Conway Christian's Brady DeMarcus accounted for more than 3,200 yards, 46 touchdowns, and more than 150 tackles, helping Conway Christian to 30 wins and its first ever state championship. Conway Christian's Brady DeMarcus.
All right, one more round. The Farm Bureau 2A Defensive Player of the Year goes to Gabe Boyle of Carlisle.
Farm Bureau presents the finalist for Class 2A Coach of the Year, Justin Kramer, Conway Christian. It's been a steady progression for Coach Justin Kramer and Conway Christian. The Eagles were winless 5 years ago and won just 1 time the next season, but several freshmen played that year. Last season, the Eagles won 9 times and lost to eventual state champion Bigelow by a touchdown in the conference championship game. The Eagles aimed for new heights this fall with 13 experienced seniors, including 10 3-year starters. Senior Aaron Lovelace was one of 3 players to run for at least 1,000 yards. Their resolve was tested in mid-season, but they rallied past Mount Ida for a 1-point win. 4 weeks later, they got revenge on Bigelow by blocking 5 kicks and pulling away for a 31-point win. 3 weeks after that, Conway Christian senior leadership showed up again when the Eagles trailed Junction City 21-0 in the first half. Kramer's defense clamped down. Conway Christian won by 4 points. A week later, the Eagles didn't panic when they trailed East Poinsett County by 2 points in the fourth quarter of the state championship game. They kept running the ball all the way to the school record 14th win and the Eagles' first state championship. Conway Christian's Justin Kramer. Brandon Powell, East Poinsett County. East Poinsett County played its first ever state title game a year ago. A return to Little Rock wasn't expected this year. Just 3 seniors played, and the Warriors started the season with an 0-2 record. But Coach Brandon Powell's East Poinsett County Warriors grew up quickly. Junior Eli Black moved from offensive guard to quarterback in the second game, and the offense took off. Running backs Dee Buchanan and Jacob Gaines both ran for more than 1,000 yards and 15 touchdowns. The Warriors averaged 33 points weekly. EPC's defense created opportunities with big plays and turnovers. The youthful EPC Warriors won the conference championship and returned to the state championship game, where they held Conway Christian to a season-low 18 points, behind outstanding sophomore defensive tackle Ashton Reel. In the past 3 years, Brandon Powell's East Poinsett County Warriors have won 32 games, consecutive conference championships, and played in 2 state title games. East Poinsett County's Brandon Powell. Michael White, Mount Ida. Mount Ida and Coach Mike White have mastered Ironman football. With only 2 experienced seniors this fall, White stuck with his patented veer offense. The Lions ran for more than 330 yards weekly, and they held 7 opponents to 2 touchdowns or less. They gained confidence in a 1-point loss at eventual state champion Conway Christian in early October. 2 weeks later, Mount Ida ran roughshod over Hector. Then the Lions pounced in the playoffs. Junior quarterback Dakota Beachy ran for 2 touchdowns in a mercy rule win at Bearden. When Beachy went down the following week, Mount Ida turned to freshman quarterback Jackson White to spearhead a 26-point win at Murfreesboro and put the Lions in the semifinals for the 4th time in the past 9 years. Mount Ida's Mike White.
Right. One more round of applause for these guys. The Farm Bureau 2A Coach of the Year goes to Justin Kramer of Conway Christian.
Farm Bureau presents the finalists for Class 3A Offensive Player of the Year, Daniel Burton, Mansfield. This former receiver was tailor-made for Mansfield's flexbone offense. Daniel Burton changed positions when Win Overton became Mansfield's coach 2 years ago. Now Burton would carry the ball, and he carried the Tigers to a new level. As a junior, he totaled almost 1,900 yards and 21 touchdowns, leading Mansfield to a school record 11 wins and to the semifinals. This fall, Burton made more than 50 tackles for a defense that held 8 opponents to 2 touchdowns or less. He injured his ribs returning the opening kickoff against Charleston, but he never left the game, running for more than 100 yards and returning this kickoff for a momentum-changing touchdown. 3 weeks later, Burton had 8 tackles against Boonville and ran for 154 yards to lead Mansfield to its first win over the Bearcats in 44 years. Burton capped his senior season by running for 104 yards and 3 touchdowns in the semifinals against Salem. In a 2-time All-State career, Mansfield's do-it-all player, Daniel Burton, ran for more than 4,000 yards and 50 touchdowns, taking the Tigers to a conference title and consecutive semifinal appearances. Mansfield's Daniel Burton. Ben Keithley, Bismarck. Bismarck's 5-sport athlete stands just 5'9", but on the football field, he towered over the competition. Ben Keithley made plays as a freshman and started on defense as a sophomore. Playing quarterback the past 2 seasons, he took Bismarck to new heights. Last fall, Keithley shined in Bismarck's first home playoff game in 27 years. He totaled 316 yards in a 29-point win over Hackett. A week later, Keithley had another 300-yard effort as Bismarck knocked off defending state champion Charleston by 8 points. This fall, Ben Keithley stood tall in the pocket for Bismarck. Despite missing time in midseason with a collarbone injury, Bismarck's team leader returned and played through the pain. In the semifinals against Fordyce, Ben Keithley gritted out 259 yards and 4 touchdowns, helping Bismarck get a mercy rule win. A week later, Ben Keithley led Bismarck to its first ever state title game. In a 2-time All-State career, Bismarck quarterback Ben Keithley generated more than 5,600 yards and 86 touchdowns, helping Bismarck achieve a new level of success. Bismarck's Ben Keithley. Cavante Washington, Rivercrest. Rivercrest 6'3" quarterback stood tall in the pocket. And like most Colts, he can run. Cavante Washington took off and sprinted through defenses for 3 years. As a sophomore, Washington threw this 92-yard touchdown pass in the quarterfinals at Arkadelphia. The following season, he had 126 yards in a 10-point win over Warren in the semifinals. A week later, Cavante carved up Harding Academy for 228 yards in a close state championship game loss. Washington ran the offense better as a senior. He had 319 yards and 2 touchdowns in a 14-point win over Forest City in Week 3. 2 weeks later, Rivercrest trailed Newport in the final minute when Washington completed 3 passes, and this 6-yard touchdown run capped the game-winning 85-yard drive. Washington finished his All-State senior season by putting up more than 3,400 yards and 46 touchdowns, helping Rivercrest win 11 games. In his career, Rivercrest dual-threat quarterback Cavante Washington totaled 8,000 yards and 97 touchdowns, quarterbacking teams that won 32 games. Rivercrest, Cavante Washington.
You coming, guys? All right, let's give another big hand to these guys. The Farm Bureau 3A Offensive Player of the Year goes to Ben Keithley, Bismarck.
Farm Bureau presents the finalist for Class 3A Defensive Player of the Year, Jeremiah Jacobs, Osceola. Osceola's linebacker, only 5'6", nevertheless stood tall in the middle for one of Class 3A's top defenses. Jeremiah Jacobs excelled at reading keys and making tackles in the backfield. He had 11 stops in an October showdown with Newport. 2 weeks later, Jacobs had 7 stops in the conference title game against Rivercrest. He stuffed this play near the goal line in an 8-point victory. Versatile Jeremiah Jacobs also was a touchdown magnet in Coach Robert Hook's new offense. This run gave Osceola its first score against Newport. Jacobs exploded for long runs, and his ability to catch the ball opened up Osceola's offense. In an all-state senior season, Jeremiah Jacobs totaled more than 1,200 yards and 13 touchdowns for an offense that averaged 35 points per game. On defense, he made 93 tackles and forced 4 turnovers, helping the Seminoles win 10 games and its second conference championship the past 3 years. Osceola's Jeremiah Jacobs. Skylar Payne, Salem. Salem put its best player in the middle of the defense, so teams couldn't run away from him. It seldom worked. Skylar Payne played like his name. He inflicted pain with hard hits. In all conference sophomore and junior seasons, he totaled 170 tackles. This fall, Payne played everywhere. He started the season by staving off defenses as an offensive guard. Then when Salem needed a fullback, he switched to jersey number 32 in midseason, and the offense took off. He averaged almost 5 yards per carry and bulldozed running lanes. Payne was a focal point for a defense that gave up a touchdown or less in 5 games, making plays at linebacker and on the line. This 4th down tackle sealed the semifinal win at Mansfield. And Saturday night at War Memorial Stadium, Skylar Payne and the Salem Greyhounds won their first ever state championship. Salem's Skylar Payne. Brendan Simmons, Fordyce. He wasn't always the middle of Fordyce's defense, but Brendan Simmons made himself the centerpiece. As a sophomore, number 4 helped Fordyce win a playoff game by making plays all over the field against Mansfield in a 31-point victory. A year later, he had 67 stops, including a dozen in a 1-point playoff loss at Prescott. Brendan Simmons absorbed game film and became Fordyce's defensive leader as a senior. The Redbugs gave up 13 points a week, and Simmons made a team-high 114 tackles. He had 8 stops and a 2-point victory over Rising in the conference championship game. A month later, Simmons was in on 7 stops in a quarterfinal win over Boonville. In his career, Fordyce's top linebacker made 233 tackles, helping the Redbugs win a conference title and advance to the semifinals. Fordyce's Brendan Simmons.
All right, let's hear it for all of them. The Farm Bureau 3A Defensive Player of the Year goes to Skylar Payne of Salem.
Farm Bureau presents the finalist for Class 3A Coach of the Year, DJ Keithley, Bismarck. In DJ Keithley's first 4 years as head coach, Bismarck to its 3rd conference championship in school history. Southside's Andrew Plummer. Peyton Sellers, Hamburg. Simply stated, he was Hamburg's defense the past 2 years. Peyton Sellers fought through blocks and never let go. As a senior, Sellers was an all-state linebacker, and he transferred that Mack truck attitude to offense. Number 9 put Hamburg into the playoffs by flattening defenders and making 21 tackles in the regular season finale at Stuttgart. At Gravett the next week, Peyton put on a show, making plays on special teams, leading the Lions with 20 tackles and running over Gravett, helping the Lions to win a playoff game for the first time in 4 years. Peyton Sellers ranked in the top 10 nationally this fall with 197 tackles, and he finishes his 2-time All-State career with more than 400 stops. Hamburg's Peyton Sellers. Game. A year Parkview captured another state title. This fall started with a 12-catch, 2-touchdown performance at Melissa, Texas. Money made Valley View pay with 2 touchdowns in the semifinals. A week later, he caught this 67-yard touchdown on the second play of the state championship game, setting the stage for another title. Ontario Money Elston finishes his 3-time All-State career with more than 4,100 yards and 52 touchdowns for teams that won 39 games and 3 consecutive state titles. Little Rock Parkview's Montario Elston. Drew Gartman, Valley View. In baseball, shortstops make quick decisions. Maybe that's why Valley View's infielder excelled at several spots on the football field. Drew Gartman was an all-state receiver as a junior, helping Valley View to 10 wins and a conference title. Gartman transitioned to quarterback as a senior, playing with passion. Gartman was a dual threat and put the Blazer offense on his back. In the conference title game at Harding Academy, Drew Gartman accounted for 441 yards and 5 touchdowns in a 25-point victory. 2 weeks later, he put up 250 yards and 4 touchdowns in a Mercy Rule win over Brooklyn. In the playoffs, he spearheaded a first-round win over Texarkana and put on a show in the quarterfinals with more than 300 yards and 3 TDs in an overtime thriller against Marlton. Valley View All-State quarterback Drew Gartman put up almost 3,200 yards and 40 touchdowns this fall as the Blazers won 12 games and advanced to the semifinals for the second time in school history. Valley View's Drew Gartman. Grady Oman, Hot Springs Lakeside. Oh man, he was Hot Springs Lakeside's one-man highlight reel. But Grady Oman wasn't always destined to run for the record books. He was a playmaking linebacker. Before trying out at running back in the middle of last season, Grady went off for almost 1,000 yards in the final 7 games and became a fixture on offense. His senior season started with his first quarter touchdown in the opener against Class 6A Lake Hamilton. The next week, Grady ground out 5 touchdowns in a mercy rule win over Class 6A Sheridan. In the conference opener at Camden Fairview, Grady Oman carried the ball a whopping 39 times for more than 200 yards as Lakeside notched a 7-point win. In the regular season finale against Hot Springs, Oman obliterated the Trojan D for 257 yards and 3 touchdowns, giving the Rams a conference runner-up finish. 3 weeks later, Grady became a playoff legend with 304 yards and 4 touchdowns in the semifinals at Farmington. In Grady Oman's 2-time All-State career, Lakeside's bruiser bullied his way to more than 3,700 yards and 46 scores, helping the Rams to consecutive conference runner-up finishes and their first semifinal appearance in more than 40 years. Hot Springs Lakeside's Grady Oman.
All right, let's give it up for these guys. The Farm Bureau 5A Offensive Player of the Year goes to Mr. Montario Elston from Parkview.
Farm Bureau presents the finalist for Class 5A Defensive Player of the Year, Jermaine Penny, Little Rock Parkview. Little Rock Parkview's roster was loaded with athletes the past 3 seasons, but one of the best was one of the least heralded. Jermaine Penny did a little bit of everything for the Patriots, turning heads with world-class speed. As a junior, this kickoff return for a touchdown flipped momentum and propelled Parkview to a 1-point win over Class 7A Bryant. Penny was a highlight reel this fall, averaging 23 yards per catch, and almost half of his receptions went for touchdowns. This 73-yard catch and run electrified the Patriots in a mercy rule win over Hot Springs. Penny put the special in special teams. His 92-yard kickoff return for a touchdown was a backbreaker in the state championship game. As a ball-hawking cornerback, Penny set the tone in the semifinal win over Valley View with this first quarter interception return for a touchdown. In an all-state senior season, Parkview's ultimate utility player, Jermaine Penny, scored a dozen touchdowns in various ways, helping the Patriots win 13 games and their 3rd straight state title. Little Rock Parkview's Jermaine Penny. Amarian Robinson, Little Rock Parkview. 4-year starters in high school football are rare. Then again, players like Little Rock Parkview's Amarian Robinson are scarce too. He scored 3 touchdowns in the first half of his first game as a freshman. The safety scored 6 defensive and special teams touchdowns that year. The next year, this interception return before halftime against Bryant kept the Patriots close. His All-State sophomore season ended with 63 tackles as Parkview won its first state title since 1978. Robinson played more offense as a junior, generating 500 yards. But his mark was on defense, with 52 tackles, as he led Parkview to another state title. Robinson made a statement in his first game as a senior, returning this interception for a crucial touchdown in a 6-point victory at Melissa, Texas. A month later, he scored 3 touchdowns in a Mercy Rule win against Hot Springs. And in the state championship game, Robinson had 3 tackles and returned this interception for a touchdown, helping Parkview to its 3rd straight state championship. In a 3-time All-State career, Parkview safety Omarion Man Robinson had 15 interceptions and more than 150 tackles as the Patriots won a whopping 39 games. Little Rock Parkview's Omarion Robinson. Morgan Shader, Farmington. Farmington's defensive leader played through pain, but Morgan Shader could dish it out as well. Shader attacked the ball this fall. He had a dozen stops in week 2 in this game against Prairie Grove. 2 weeks later, this interception flipped momentum in a win over Harrison. Later, in a cold November rain at Alma, Morgan Shader had 10 stops in the regular season finale as Farmington secured its 2nd consecutive 5A West championship. A month later, Shader was all over the field in the state championship game, making a game-high 10 tackles. In an all-state senior season, Morgan Shader forced 6 turnovers and made 122 tackles as Farmington won 12 games and played in the state title game for the first time in 51 years. Farmington's Morgan Shader.
All right, let's give it up for these guys. The Farm Bureau 5A Defensive Player of the Year goes to Mr. Jermaine Penny of Little Rock Parkview.
Farm Bureau presents the finalist for Class 5A Coach of the Year, Brad Bolding, Little Rock Parkview. 3 consecutive state championships and counting. Brad Bolding's Little Rock Parkview Patriots have won 39 games over the past 3 seasons, Mercy ruling 29 opponents in that span. This season, Parkview's offense put up 46 points per game, most of it in the first half of blowout wins. Junior quarterback Emmanuel Bunton emerged as a passing threat. Running back Cameron Settles ran for almost 1,000 yards, and junior Dak Crosby showed out late in the year. But Parkview's calling card was its defense. The Patriots forced 3 turnovers in a season-opening win at Melissa, Texas. On Halloween night at War Memorial Stadium, Parkview held eventual semifinalist Hot Springs Lakeside to a season-low 118 yards rushing in a 26-point victory. A month later, Parkview held 5A East champion Valley View to a season-low 14 points in the semifinals. A week later, in the state championship game, the Patriots forced 2 turnovers and held Farmington to just 21 points, winning their 13th game of the season and their 3rd straight state title. Little Rock Parkview's Brad Bolding. Sean Cockrell, Valley View. Valley View's school colors are blue and gold, and behind veteran coach Sean Cockrell, its football team has a blue collar stamp. In 11 seasons, Cockrell has turned Valley View into a 5A East power. Cockrell's Blazers have won 5 of the past 7 conference titles by controlling the line of scrimmage. With 8 seniors on offense this fall, the Blazers put up 40 points weekly. They jumped on Harding Academy 21-0 in the first half of the conference title game before rolling to an easy victory. The stingy defense gave up 2 touchdowns a week, helping Valley View secure its 3rd consecutive conference championship. Behind a late-season push, Sean Cockrell and the Valley View Blazers ran to a school record 12 wins and its 2nd ever trip to the state semifinals. Valley View's Sean Cockrell.
That's who we are. Okay? Continue to do that. I'm so freaking proud of you right now. But let's continue that, and let's have that same talk after the game. Go get it up, let's go. Let's keep that.
Tommy Tice, Farmington. This man coached Harrison to a state championship way back in 1999. A quarter of a century later, Tommy Tice was coaxed out of retirement to lead Farmington. In just 7 months, he's taken the Cardinals to new heights. Despite a mercy rule loss to Shiloh Christian in the opener, Tice kept the team together. Fortunes changed 2 weeks later when Farmington rallied past Prairie Grove. Farmington thrived under Tice's gentle approach. Quarterback Aiden Lester flourished in the new offense, totaling more than 2,000 yards. The Cardinals won the conference championship in a monsoon at Alma in November. Then 3 weeks later, Farmington played in the semifinals for the first time in almost 40 years, beating Hot Springs Lakeside by 4 points and advancing to the state title game for the first time since 1973. Farmington's Tommy Tice.
Let's hear it for these guys. The Farm Bureau 5A Coach of the Year goes to Coach Tommy Tice of Farmington.
Farm Bureau presents the finalist for Class 6A Offensive Player of the Year, Jacob Chenoweth, Mountain Home. He waited patiently for his time, then he took off. After backing up last season, #1 was Mountain Home's first option this fall. Jacob Chenoweth broke tackles and turned short gains into touchdowns. Chenoweth put Class 6A on notice in late September by running for 234 yards in a win at Fort Smith Southside. 2 weeks later, he had 200 yards in a 20-point victory at Russellville. But Jacob was just warming up. In Week 7, Jacob Chenoweth broke through Siloam Springs tacklers for a school record 292 yards. Chenoweth took the sting out of the Sheridan Yellow Jackets in the playoffs, running for more than 200 yards and 5 touchdowns, including this game winner in the final moments. In an all-state senior season, Mountain Home's patient Jacob Chenoweth ran for more than 1,900 yards, helping the Bombers win 10 games and advance to the playoff semifinals. Mountain Home's Jacob Chenoweth. Maddox Davis, Benton. Benton's 5'9", 165-pound receiver used his stature, or lack thereof, as an advantage. Maddox Davis maneuvered easily past defenders. During an all-conference sophomore season, Davis totaled more than 700 yards with 5 touchdowns, including this 80-yarder in a Mercy Rule win against Sylvan Hills. As a junior, number 5 had 900 yards and 15 touchdowns, helping the Panthers to 10 wins and a conference title. Switching to number 2 as a senior, Davis simply baffled defenses. He caught 11 passes for 133 yards and 2 touchdowns in the conference opener against Jonesboro. 2 months later, when Benton was without its starting quarterback in the conference title game at Marion, Maddox Davis stepped up with 12 catches for 242 yards and 3 touchdowns. In the playoff quarterfinals, Davis' 2 touchdowns triggered a mercy rule win over Lake Hamilton. And Maddox Davis' final game was phenomenal, with 18 catches, 248 yards, and 3 scores in the semifinals against Shiloh Christian. Benton's 2-time All-State receiver, Maddox Davis, had more than 3,200 yards and 44 touchdowns in his career, helping the Panthers to 29 wins and 2 conference titles. Benton's Maddox Davis. Grant Carnes, Greenwood. He's a rarity. He has a chance to play both college football and baseball. But not only that, he also started in 4 consecutive football state title games. Greenwood receiver Grant Carnes started against El Dorado as a freshman, hauling in this pass on 4th and 20 in the 4th quarter that set up a touchdown. Carnes' standout sophomore season started with 9 catches for 228 yards against Portsmouth Northside, and he became a local legend, hauling in this Hail Mary pass on the final play to give Greenwood a 3-point win. Grant Carnes finished that sophomore season with almost 1,300 yards and 16 touchdowns. During an All-State junior season, he had almost 1,000 yards and 13 touchdowns, helping the Bulldogs to an undefeated year. He elevated his play in a sensational senior season, turning into the state's leading receiver. In the Class 6A title game, Carnes caught 7 passes for 134 yards and 2 touchdowns. In a 3-time All-State career, Grant Carnes had almost 3,800 yards and scored 49 touchdowns, playing for teams that won 45 games and 2 state titles. Greenwood's Grant Carnes.
All right, let's hear it for these 3. The Farm Bureau 6A Offensive Player of the Year goes to Mr. Grant Carnes of Greenwood.
Farm Bureau presents the finalist for Class 6A Defensive Player of the Year, Cash Archer, Greenwood. Cash is king in the financial world. The same can be said about the Greenwood Bulldogs. Cash Archer was king of Greenwood's defense. Archer made 67 tackles as a sophomore when the Bulldogs won 10 games and played for a state championship. Opponents double-teamed Archer during his All-State junior season, but number 7 made them pay. He finished with 78 tackles and led the state with 20 sacks as the Bulldogs won 13 games and a state championship. Greenwood's Cash Archer spun out of double teams and sacked quarterbacks during an All-State senior season. He had 10 tackles, half of them behind the line of scrimmage, and Bulldogs Shiloh Christian in the 6A West opener in September. Cash capped his season 10 weeks later with 9 tackles and 2 sacks in the state championship game. Greenwood linebacker Cash Archer finishes his 2-time All-State career with 218 tackles for teams that captured 3 conference championships and 2 state titles. Greenwood's Cash Archer. Hudson Ball, Shiloh Christian. Opposing teams schemed to run away from him, but Shiloh Christian's stand-up defensive lineman ran him down anyway. Hudson Ball combined quickness and strength to physically dominate the line of scrimmage. Number 31 disrupted plays in the backfield, forced turnovers, and shed blocks to make 71 stops as a senior. Ball balled out in the semifinals at Benton with 7 tackles, and this interception helped spur a semifinal victory. A week later, Ball made 6 tackles in the Class 6A state championship game. Shiloh Christian's most skilled defensive lineman also ran for 9 touchdowns this fall as the Saints' short yardage running back. In an all-state senior season, 6A West coaches voted Shiloh Christian's Hudson Ball as the league's top defensive player after he helped the Saints to 9 wins and a return to the state championship game. Shiloh Christian's Hudson Ball. Walter Hicks, Benton. Benton's defensive anchor the past 3 years dropped the hammer on quarterbacks. Walter Hicks fought through blocks and knew how to make tackles in space. In an all-conference sophomore season, Hicks made 126 tackles, and his 90-yard interception return broke open a close game at Searcy. His junior campaign was even better. Hicks had 104 tackles and returned 2 fumbles for touchdowns, including this one to help evoke the mercy rule in the first half against Sheridan. Number 25 was Benton's defensive leader in an all-state senior season, relentlessly pursuing quarterbacks, shedding blocks to make 133 tackles, and forcing 4 turnovers. Walter Hicks returned this fumble in the first half of an easy win at Sheridan. In his career, one of the best linebackers in Benton history made a school record 363 tackles and 29 sacks, helping Benton win consecutive 6A East titles and make 2 trips to the semifinals. Benton's Walter Hicks.
All right, let's give it up for these guys. The Farm Bureau 6A Defensive Player of the Year goes to Cash Archer of Greenwood.
Farm Bureau presents the finalists for Class 7A, Class 6A, Coach of the Year. Chris Young, Greenwood. The impact coaches have goes beyond the field. Such was the case this year for Greenwood's Chris Young. His Bulldogs started the season 8-0, mercy ruling 7 of those opponents. But Chris Young and his coaching staff had to hold the team together after star receiver Isaiah Arrington was tragically killed in a late October house fire. The Bulldogs leaned on each other and played for a purpose. Behind All-State junior quarterback Kane Archer, the offense put up 55 points per game, dominating like no one in state history. They only punted on 4% of their possessions this year. The defense shut out 3 of the 4 playoff opponents. And on a chilly December afternoon, Chris Young and the Greenwood Bulldogs honored Isaiah Arrington in the state championship game by defeating Shiloh Christian by 26 points. In just 5 years as head coach, Chris Young has taken Greenwood to 3 state championships. Greenwood's Chris Young. Steve Airy, Mountain Home. He took over a program on a 22-game losing streak during COVID. 5 seasons later, Steve Airy's Mountain Home Bombers soared this year. Mountain Home ran the ball for almost 300 yards weekly and aired it out, or airied it out, when needed. Using a stout defensive line, Airy's Bombers gave up just 2 touchdowns or less in half their games. The season shifted in the conference opener with a confidence-building 15-point victory at Fort Smith Southside. 2 months later, Mountain Home rallied from a fourth-quarter deficit to beat Sheridan in the first round of the playoffs. In the quarterfinals, Mountain Home's aggressive defense and big play offense boasted a 28-point victory at Little Rock Catholic. In the process, the Bombers won its school record 10th game of the season and advanced to the playoff semifinals for the first time in 18 years. Mountain Home coach Steve Airy. Quad Sanders, Bryant. This coach was Bryant's defensive coordinator on 5 state championship teams. But Quad Sanders' first season as head coach ended with 2 losses, including this one in the semifinals at Bentonville. Sanders and the 2024 Bryant Hornets hit reset. In September, they avenged one of last year's losses with a 20-point win over Little Rock Parkview. The Hornets ran wild behind running backs Daniel Anderson and Myron Thrash. 3 receivers totaled more than 700 yards each as Bryant scored 47 points per game. The swarming defense gave up 2 touchdowns or fewer in 9 games. They shut out Conway in the second half of the 7A Central title game. 3 weeks later, Bryant helped Pulaski Academy to its fewest points in 19 years. And on a cold December Saturday night, Quad Sanders and the Bryant Hornets scored on 3 of their final 4 possessions to rally past Bentonville. That was the school's 6th state title in 7 years, and the first under Coach Sanders, Bryant's Quad Sanders.
Let's hear it for these guys. The Farm Bureau Class 7A, 6A Coach of the Year goes to Chris Young of Greenwood.
Farm Bureau presents the finalists for Class 7A Offensive Player of the Year, Brandon Cobb, Pulaski Academy. His first meaningful varsity snap as a sophomore was in a close conference title game at Greenwood. Brandon Cobb threw an interception on his 3rd play. But Pulaski Academy's quarterback made few mistakes after that. Cobb took over as full-time quarterback a year later, generating almost 4,900 yards and 44 touchdowns, leading the Bruins to 10 wins and a trip to the semifinals in his junior campaign. Brandon Cobb developed into a true dual-threat QB as a senior, with more than 500 total yards in the 2nd game of the year. His mobility kept the Bruins close in mid-season losses against Bryant and Conway. Cobb saved his best for late in the year with 455 yards and 6 touchdowns in the November showdown at rival Little Rock Christian. 2 weeks later, Brandon balled out with 365 yards and 3 touchdowns in a quarterfinal victory at 7A West champion Fayetteville. In 2 seasons as Pulaski Academy's triggerman, Brandon Cobb accounted for 104 touchdowns and almost 11,000 yards of offense for teams that won 32 games and a state championship. Pulaski Academy's Brandon Cobb. Trevor Grant, Bentonville. The sons of coaches often play quarterback, but few sit on the sidelines for 2 years, like Bentonville's Trevor Grant did. When it was his time, he shined. In the third week of this season, Grant completed his first 10 passes at Missouri powerhouse Lee's Summit North. A week later, the dual threat ran for more than 100 yards and 3 touchdowns, helping Bentonville to its first win of the season. Grant's confidence and passing skills reached a new level. In a midseason showdown with Fayetteville, Grant completed passes to 6 different receivers and threw 4 touchdown passes in a 31-point victory. A month later, he passed for a career-high 315 yards and 4 touchdowns in a 25-point quarterfinal playoff win over rival Bentonville West. Grant almost willed Bentonville to a state championship, passing for 203 yards and 1 touchdown in a 5-point loss to Bryant. Trevor Grant finishes his only season as his dad's quarterback by passing for more than 3,000 yards and 34 touchdowns, taking the Tigers to a 7A West title and a state runner-up finish. Bentonville's Trevor Grant. Jordan Walker, Bryant. Most quarterbacks
All right, let's give it here for him. The Farm Bureau 7A Offensive Player of the Year goes to Jordan Walker of Bryant.
Farm Bureau presents the finalists for Class 7A Defensive Player of the Year. Jonah Knabb, Bentonville. He lulled opponents with his nondescript size, but you better not sleep on Bentonville's hard-hitting 180-pound linebacker, Jonah Knapp. Bentonville coach Jody Grant transitioned Knapp from running back to linebacker as a sophomore 2 years ago. He quickly became the Tigers' top defensive player. Jonah had 126 tackles and was the defensive leader in an all-state junior season, helping the Tigers to the state title game. A year later, Knapp was the best defender in the 7A West. He terrorized quarterbacks and was always around the ball. Knapp made 10 stops in the conference title game against Fayetteville, then stuffed Bentonville West in the quarters. Jonah helped Bentonville almost pull off a win on the biggest stage, making 9 tackles in the state championship game. In his career, Bentonville's 2-time All-State linebacker Jonah Knapp made 246 tackles for teams that won 29 games and played for 3 consecutive state titles. Bentonville's Jonah Knapp. Elijah Hill, Bryant. Opponents couldn't run away from or around Bryant's big defensive end. Eli Hill kept opponents at bay with his strength and length. Hill had an All-State junior season when Bryant won 10 games and a conference title. This season started with 4 Hill tackles in a Salt Bowl win over Benton. Hill showed athleticism by taking this fumble to the house for a touchdown in a Mercy Rule win over Little Rock Christian. He registered at least 3 sacks in multiple games, including a 4-sack effort in a semifinal blowout win over Pulaski Academy. Hill finished the season with 56 stops, including 7 tackles and 3 sacks in the state championship game. In a 2-time All-State career, Bryant's Eli Hill made more than 125 tackles, helping the Hornets win 35 games and 2 state championships. Bryant's Eli Hill. Caden Nash, Pulaski Academy. The quietest player in Pulaski Academy's locker room flexed on the field. Linebacker Caden Nash celebrated big plays, and he made plenty of them. Nash tackled ball carriers 95 times in an all-conference junior season, helping the Bruins win 10 games and advance to the semifinals. Nash was a ball magnet as a senior. Here is one of his 20 tackles in a midseason win at Cabot. A week later, Caden had 13 tackles against Conway. Nash terrorized Fayetteville in the playoff quarterfinals by making 12 tackles and forcing 2 fumbles as Pulaski Academy knocked defending state champ Fayetteville out of the playoffs. Caden Nash finished as Pulaski Academy's top tackler the past 2 seasons with 209 stops, helping PA win 20 games and advance to the state semifinals twice. Pulaski Academy's Caden Nash.
Let's hear for these guys. The Farm Bureau 7A Defensive Player of the Year goes to Elijah Hill of Bryant.
Farm Bureau presents the Lineman of the Year, Josh Brandenburg, Bentonville. Here's a guy who didn't have a set position. Instead, John Brandenburg played all over Bentonville's offensive line the past 3 years. He was matched up against the opponent's best player in most games. Brandenburg neutralized speedy defensive ends by turning them away from running plays and getting in front of screen passes. Number 68 pushed around defensive guys and usually drove them into the backfield. When the Tigers needed to pick up yards, they ran behind John Brandenburg. In his career, Bentonville's All-State do-everything lineman helped the Tiger offense put up 42 points per game, win 3 7A West titles, and play in 3 consecutive state championship games. Bentonville's John Brandenburg. Carius Kern, Marion. His head coach says that this gentle giant never cared much about dominating blocks until he was a senior. But Carius Kern made up for lost time this past fall. Carius started his first game ever on the offensive line in the first game of his sophomore season, and he never relinquished his post. Kern refined his technique as a junior and earned all-state honors for a Marion team that finished 8-3 with a spot in the state quarterfinals. But Carius Kern reached his peak this season, earning a 91% blocking grade and recording a single-season school record 94 pancake blocks in a second straight All-State season, while earning the 6A East Offensive Lineman of the Year. In 3 stellar seasons, Carius Kern amassed more than 150 career pancake blocks, logging an 87% blocking grade, and twice earning All-State honors for Marion teams that won 22 games. Marion's Carius Kern. Isaiah Gibson, Benton. Benton coach Brad Harris says it doesn't take long to find highlights of his best lineman. Isaiah Gibson made sure Benton had room to run. Whether it was creating a crease at the line of scrimmage, hustling to make a block downfield, or pulling as the lead blocker, Gibson was in the picture on Benton's biggest plays. In an all-conference junior campaign, the left tackle helped the Panthers put up 50 points a game. Number 53 was Benton's offensive team captain as a senior and its most relentless blocker. The Panthers went behind their 6'2", 280-pound All-State tackle to average 51 points a game. He helped Benton roll up almost 600 yards in the conference opener against Jonesboro and have more than 500 yards in the semifinals against Shiloh Christian. In 2 years as a starter, Gibson helped the Panthers score at least 7 touchdowns in 19 games and advance to the semifinals in consecutive seasons. Benton's Isaiah Gibson.
All right, let's hear it for these guys. The Farm Bureau Lineman of the Year goes to Mr. Carius Kern, Marion. Congratulations. Well, that includes all the finalists, but we're not done yet. Let's give this group, the class of 2024, a huge round of applause. I hope you all have enjoyed this as much as we have. It's been an honor to celebrate these amazing players and coaches this year, and it's just been an honor. Special thanks. Barry Grooms over there does everything. It's month. Really tough, and he's really killed it with these scripts. Bates Yoakum over here did all the video editing and probably a lot more than that. Mr. David Wallace, who's not here, did all the voiceovers. Tony Thrash, my mom over there, made sure this looked nice and neat. And Jeff Krupsaw, our editor back there, yawning. Yes, thank you for everything you've done. Graham Shear did all the posters, these posters you've got. And there's also a poster of the class of 2024 back there. So it's for y'all to take home. Daryl Dreer, his farewell tour of film for 4 years, and this was his last year. And he officially retired at the Shiloh Greenwood half. Camera in and said, "I cannot do any better than this," and then said, "I'm going home. This is the best I'll ever do." All you've done, your filming, it's been amazing. Couldn't ask for better. Brandon Hardiman, Cody Stell, for everything. The book, the videoing. Drake Pretty up in Northwest Arkansas, film. Clark. Annabella Bella Brown for their. Thank you so much, you guys. I think we have the best videos we've ever had. Barry, you got the trophy. They're under the. With the live stream with Chris Babb and the Ouachita Baptist University. It's Matt Hollis and Gavin Wallace and Phil Bird. Thank you for making these videos. Our photographers, Kristen Kitterman. And we will have those photos from back there and out in the website tomorrow, Kristen. And then, yes, and then I'll put on Facebook and all of our Instagram and social media accounts. And then my wife, Morgan, and my beautiful 2 little girls, Tommy and Tyler. I barely even heard you tonight. Thank you. Thank you. The club. This isn't about winning and losing, guys. The 40 best players in the state of Arkansas are here, and the 16 best coaches. And we may have been wrong before, so don't feel bad. 2/3 of the guys that went home today essentially went home empty-handed, but you are all winners to me, and we appreciate you coming and celebrating these guys in the class of 2024. But we started to do an overall award for somebody who's dominated, we thought dominated their position by the most, talking to coaches. And this player, we had a defense, but he's going to play in Arkansas. Mr. Antonio Jordan of Warren. Thank you so much, and we're going to take some pictures, and I hope you had as much fun as we did. Good night, drive safe.